The screen opens in silence, only the hum of servers and faint echoes of distant trading floors. The narrator's voice carries a quiet authority, neither cynical nor admiring, merely aware. In a world where capital moves faster than conscience, there exists a firm so vast that it owns a stake in nearly everything. $8 trillion. Numbers too large to feel, yet powerful enough to steer nations, shift elections, and decide the fate of industries. Its name is known, its influence rarely understood. Behind glass towers and polished quarterly reports lies the machinery of control, mechanical, relentless, invisible. This is not the story of one company. It is the story of a system that forgot its soul. Most people think finance is about numbers. It isn't. It's about stories. Stories that justify decisions, disguise intentions, and soothe conscience. Every dollar in this firm carries a narrative. Pensions seeking safety, governments chasing stability, corporations borrowing time. But the stories are written by those who never appear in the news, who trade in influence instead of goods. In this building, silence is currency, and access is power. The first rule inside was simple. Never call it control. Call it stewardship. The firm didn't own the world. It merely managed it. Managed pensions, portfolios, dreams. But management, when scaled to the size of nations, becomes indistinguishable from power. And power rarely remains neutral. Every empire begins with belief. Belief that what it builds is necessary. For this firm, that belief was risk management. Contain chaos. Control exposure. What? But the world it sought to stabilize was already shifting beneath its own algorithms. They called it scale. Economists called it efficiency. But the truth was simpler. The firm had become too big to feel. Its balance sheet wasn't a measure of profit. It was a mirror of dependency. The world had entrusted it with its future, without asking who it was becoming. Inside the heart of the firm, the illusion of unity begins to strain. Decisions worth billions are discussed in hushed tones and encrypted calls. Every move has a shadow. Every partnership, a price. Daniel sits at the head of the table, face carved by years of compromise, while Maya watches, measuring silence more than words. Liam, the youngest among them, sees the system from beneath, where data doesn't lie, but people do. The narrator's voice cuts through the sterile quiet. Transparency was their slogan, but secrecy was their structure. And within the walls of glass, the cracks began to show. Meetings inside the firm were theater, each participant a character performing certainty. Daniel believed control was his burden, not his privilege. Maya saw numbers as moral puzzles, and Liam saw patterns no one else could. Yet all three understood the cost of deviation. One wrong decision could ripple through the global markets like a pulse through glass. The firm was no longer a company. The narrator whispers. It was a nervous system, sensitive, intelligent, and self-preserving. Late evening, the markets in Asia open, and the office hums with quiet intensity. Maya stays behind, studying the flow of liquidity through emerging economies. Data pulsing like a heartbeat. She senses something wrong. A concentration too deep. A bet too large. Hidden behind algorithmic opacity. The voice-over deepens. In systems designed to distribute risk, someone always carries it alone. And in silence, the first fractures form. Daniel's office overlooks the river, a view bought with decades of compliance. He reads reports that no one else can see, the kind that reshape markets overnight. But his hands tremble slightly. Beneath the surface of calculated calm lies fatigue, the quiet terror of knowing too much. When power grows beyond comprehension, the narration continues. Understanding becomes isolation. And isolation breeds fear. Liam stares at a stream of code on his monitor. The firm's proprietary trading algorithm. Something doesn't add up. Data has been altered upstream. He hesitates, knowing exposure could destroy his career, yet silence might cost the world billions. The narrator's voice slows, carrying weight. Inside systems built on trust, the smallest doubt becomes revolution. And in that moment, Liam knew the numbers weren't lying. People were. Whispers move faster than data inside the firm now. A rumor about a breach. A discrepancy buried in algorithmic layers. Maya senses the air has changed. The calm precision of control replaced by quiet panic. Daniel tries to contain it, summoning the old authority that once steadied markets with a sentence. But the numbers don't obey belief. When an institution this large falters, the narrator intones, it's not an event, it's an ecosystem collapsing inward, one silent decision at a time. The data breach spreads like smoke, small anomalies linking global portfolios. Maya follows the trail, sleepless and unblinking. Liam isolates the code's signature, a false flag embedded deep within the firm's AI trading system. Someone has rerouted billions. The voice-over lowers. Corruption inside a machine doesn't scream, it hums. And those who listen too closely start to hear the system's conscience breaking. Daniel calls an emergency meeting. Executives gather like judges in a trial, their expressions masked behind strategy. He reads the report, fraudulent entries, liquidity anomalies, exposure exceeding thresholds. But no one reacts. They already knew. The danger was never ignorance. The narrator says softly, it was consent. Power survives not because it hides, but because no one dares to look directly at it. Outside, the media catches scent of blood. Reports leak, unverified, explosive, unstoppable. Screens flicker with the firm's logo beside words like exposure, mismanagement, corruption. Daniel's voice cracks in a private call to a regulator. Contain it. But the tide has turned. Information, the narrator muses, was once power. Now it's fire. And the more they tried to smother it, the brighter it burned. Night descends heavy and electric. Liam sits alone in the server room, the algorithms still running. Billions flowing invisibly through code. No one fully controls anymore. He hesitates, finger over the kill command that could halt it all. Some systems, the narrator whispers, can't be shut down. They must be outlived. The hum of servers swells into a drone, indistinguishable from the pulse of the city. He presses the key. The morning after the breach is not marked by explosions or alarms, just silence. Markets open lower, then fall. Analysts speak in measured tones, pretending to understand what cannot yet be measured. Inside the firm, every screen becomes a confession. Numbers once signifying control, now pulse with chaos. Daniel walks the corridor like a man carrying invisible weight, his name already trending on global feeds. Collapse never begins with destruction, the narrator says. It begins when those who built the system no longer believe in it. The news breaks worldwide. Anchor voices speak with urgency. Governments scramble. Pension funds freeze withdrawals, and emerging markets tremble. Maya stands before the firm's crisis response room, screens filled with data from Tokyo, London, New York, all bleeding red. We built systems to minimize risk, she murmurs. But the system itself became the risk. The voice over-deepens. When $8 trillion shifts its balance, the world doesn't fall. It tilts. Behind closed doors, Daniel faces the board. There's no outrage, only calculation. Legal advisors whisper in corners, rehearsing denials, rehearsing morality. Daniel realizes he's not being asked for explanations anymore, only signatures. In crises, the narrator says, truth becomes a liability. The firm's future wasn't about survival. It was about narrative. Who they'd blame, who they'd protect. Maya watches from her office as screens across the world flash the firm's logo, followed by the word crisis. She knows what comes next. Layoffs, hearings, scapegoats. Her inbox fills with media requests, old friends seeking quotes, journalists she once trusted. Power, the narration whispers, doesn't vanish. It changes hosts. She closes her laptop slowly, the reflection of her own face fading into black glass. Outside, the city feels heavier, slower. People gather near the firm's tower, journalists, investors, employees. Liam steps out, blinking into the daylight, unsure if he's free or ruined. Daniel exits through a private corridor, his reflection caught in mirrored walls, an emperor dethroned by his own system. Maya remains inside, watching everything unravel, collapse. The narrator concludes, is not destruction, it's revelation. And what's revealed never truly disappears. The hearings begin in a room without windows. What was once whispered in corridors now unfolds beneath fluorescent scrutiny. Politicians rehearse outrage. Cameras feast on remorse. Daniel sits before a semicircle of power, each question a dagger phrased as duty. His voice is steady, but his eyes betray fatigue. He's defending not actions, but the illusion of order. In finance, the narrator says, truth is never absolute. It's priced, negotiated, and traded like everything else. The markets recover faster than trust. Maya becomes a reluctant witness, subpoenaed yet unbroken. Her testimony isn't dramatic. It's surgical, each sentence cutting through layers of deception. She doesn't name Daniel directly, but the silence between her words does. Accountability, the narrator intones, was never about justice. It was about narrative closure, so the world could believe again just long enough to forget. Outside the hearing, the media swarm. Sound bites replace substance. Headlines replace memory. Liam watches from afar, unknown to the public yet essential to the truth. He releases the original data anonymously, ensuring the cover-up dies before it's born. In an age of exposure, the narrator reflects. Secrecy is only a delay. The question isn't if the truth will surface, it's who will drown when it does. Weeks later, Daniel's resignation letter circulates online. Elegant, remorseful, evasive. He vanishes from headlines within days, absorbed by the next crisis. Maya receives offers from think tanks and regulators, each promising reform. She declines them all, knowing the system will self-heal without changing. Collapse and redemption, the narrator murmurs, are two sides of the same equation, the formula that keeps the story profitable. Night over the city. Screens glow from windows, the same algorithms still trading. The same systems humming. Maya walks along the river, the skyline mirrored in the dark water. She pauses as if to listen. To the markets, the machines, or maybe her own conscience. Nothing truly ends, the narrator concludes. It only changes form, capital, power, belief, and the firm that once owned a share of the world still does, just under a different name. Months pass, markets stabilize, portfolios rebound, and headlines fade into archives. Yet, beneath the apparent calm, the system reorganizes itself, quietly erasing its own scars. Daniel lives in exile from the world he built, watching its rebirth from a distance. The narrator's voice returns, calm but heavy. Every collapse is a rehearsal. Capital learns faster than people do. It evolves, adapts, survives. And the world, once again, begins to forget who pulled the strings. Maya takes a teaching position at a small university, lecturing on ethics and finance. Her students listen, idealistic, hungry for meaning. She tells them risk isn't only mathematical, it's moral. We design systems to protect value, she says softly. But who protects us from the system? The narrator adds, some seek redemption through truth, others through distance, But the system rewards neither. Liam now works for an NGO dedicated to financial transparency. His skills, once exploited by the firm, are redirected toward prevention. But the irony isn't lost on him. His reports gather dust while markets move faster than reform. He walks through offices filled with idealism and underfunded ambition. Truth, the narrator says, isn't profitable. That's why it needs believers more than accountants. A new CEO takes the helm of the rebranded firm, speaking to shareholders about renewed purpose. The words sound familiar: responsibility, stewardship, sustainability. Each syllable rehearsed, each phrase recycled. The camera pans across applauding faces, the cycle repeating. Institutions don't repent. The narrator reflects. They rebrand, and their absolution is measured in quarterly returns. Evening again along the river. The skyline is unchanged. Only the logos have shifted. Maya meets Liam on a quiet bridge, both silent for a long while. Finally, she says, "We didn't fail. We finished." Liam nods, uncertain whether she believes it. Empires, the narrator concludes, don't collapse, they molt. What remains looks different, but it's the same creature underneath. Still feeding, still dreaming, still waiting for its next beginning. Years have passed. The world remembers the collapse only as a case study, a warning, not a wound. The firm's name has changed twice more, its influence restored through time's quiet alchemy. Daniel lives far from the noise now. But markets still move when he speaks. History, the narrator says, is written by survivors. And in finance, survival isn't endurance, it's reinvention. The ocean murmurs outside his window, steady as profit, eternal as denial. Maya's lectures have become stories. Stories about ethics, accountability, and the thin line between intention and impact. Her students see her as the conscience of a generation, unaware that conscience was once her disguise. The system, she tells them, will always adapt faster than morality. That's why you must move first, even if you move alone. The narrator's tone softens. In teaching, she found something the markets never offered. Silence, that meant understanding. Liam's work takes him to conferences where words like transparency, ethics, and reform echo endlessly. Yet he knows progress moves in circles. He watches lobbyists and reformers share the same tables, both believing they serve justice. The narrator observes, he learned the paradox of truth. Once exposed, it loses its purity, but even fragments can still guide those willing to see. Yeah, the firm thrives again, invisible yet omnipresent. Its algorithms predict consumer desire, political tides, even sentiment. Its power is quiet, its reach absolute. The narrator's voice turns almost reverent. The system does not die, it evolves, absorbing rebellion, monetizing dissent. It leaves no villains, only participants. Somewhere, an old logo flickers on a forgotten building. The ghost of $1 trillion shadow. One final shot. The river again, flowing through the city unchanged. Maya walks alone, passing the firm's headquarters, now bearing yet another name. She stops briefly, looking up at its mirrored facade before continuing into the crowd. Legacy, the narrator concludes, isn't what we leave behind. It's what continues without us. The ideas, the structures, the illusions we mistake for truth. And in that sense, the $8 trillion firm never ended. It simply became the world.